Star Citizen in VR is absolutely wild. Hello everybody. My name is Sonorous, and in this video I will share my thoughts about Star Citizen in virtual reality. I have believed for years that Star Citizen would be pretty good in VR, but I did not expect it to be quite this good. The first time I powered up a ship and looked around in the cockpit, it immediately clicked. It was one of those rare moments when a game actually exceeds the fantasy you have had in your head for years. The immersion of being fully embedded in the game world in complete 3D is incredible. Before we go any further, there are a few important caveats I should mention. First, VR support in Star Citizen right now is only available in the PTU, and it is still in an experimental stage. CIG has been very clear about this. In their own words, this is not a full VR launch. They describe it as, quote, an opportunity for some early hands-on time, very much in the spirit of open development. Secondly, all footage in this video was captured in VR. It is not really possible to convey the true sense of immersion and depth when recording in VR. You are only seeing a partial representation of what I experience, so please keep that in mind. If you have never tried VR before, it is hard to explain just how different depth perception feels compared to a flat screen. In VR, everything has scale. Distances become intuitive. Your ship feels like a physical object you are sitting inside, rather than a camera attached to a model. And Star Citizen benefits from this more than almost anything else I have tried. The amount of detail the developers have put into ship interiors is already impressive, but in VR, the interiors are elevated to a whole new level. What really stood out to me is the actual sensation of flight in VR. Banking through space, rolling the ship, pitching up into a climb, dropping down toward the planet's surface all feel incredibly natural when your sense of motion and depth are fully engaged. You instinctively judge speed, distance, and orientation in a way that simply does not translate to a flat screen. Flying stops feeling like you are controlling a vehicle through a camera. It starts feeling like you are actually sitting inside something that has mass and momentum. It adds a physicality to flight that completely changes how Star Citizen feels moment to moment. Performance was another positive surprise for me. It ranged from acceptable to amazing depending on the situation. Flying in space is generally one of the least hardware-intensive aspects of the game, and this is completely smooth on my system even in VR. Flying over planets, even through thick clouds, held up better than I expected. It isn't flawless, but it is consistently smooth without stuttering. Compared to other recent big VR simulation titles, it actually feels more stable. In major cities, performance unfortunately degrades for me. There I am not able to get a smooth picture without reducing quality. I'm currently working around this by switching to theater mode. I lose the full immersion, but I still don't have to take off my headset. CIG does note that VR performance is very hardware dependent right now. They recommend running Vulkan, enabling upscaling, and keeping an eye on VRAM usage. So your experience may definitely vary depending on your setup. Clarity was another big surprise for me. I'm running the game on a Valve Index. Despite the somewhat low-res displays, with 200% super sampling, cockpit text was fully legible. Displays were clear, instruments were easy to read, and overall image quality held up far better than I thought it would. Let's talk about on-foot gameplay, because this is where my expectations were fairly conservative. FPS gameplay in VR with mouse and keyboard has always felt like a compromise to me. Functional, but not something I actively look forward to compared to a flat screen. That is still partly true here, but Star Citizen does things better than I expected. There is a setting called Direct Offset for FPS mode, and with this turned on, I am able to very successfully use VR even while on foot. CIG describes this mode as directly offsetting the VR camera from the normal game camera. It is faster and more natural for standard gameplay, but also less stable and more prone to motion sickness. This may be an issue for people new to VR, but for experienced VR users, I do not think it is a major factor. With direct offset enabled, aiming feels far more intuitive, weapon alignment makes sense, and FPS gameplay does not feel awkward at all. I would not call it perfect, but it is good enough that I'm no longer rushing to leave VR the moment I step out of the cockpit. At this point, FPS gameplay in VR feels genuinely enjoyable. In terms of current rough edges, the biggest issue I have is that targeting and navigation HUD elements currently sit far too close to the eyes. This makes some text uncomfortable to read and causes eye strain over time. The developers are aware of this issue, and as far as I understood, it is the highest priority for further improvements. Additionally, some visual elements, such as ship radars, inventories, looting UI, and maybe some others, are either not rendered at all in VR or are just rendered incorrectly. In other words, at the time of making this video, there are still clear areas that need refinement. For something CIG themselves repeatedly describe as experimental, this is an incredibly strong first step. One of the developers behind the feature said, "There is nothing quite like seeing our amazing and detailed ships in VR and grasping the grandness and scale of the Star Citizen universe in this way." After spending time with it, I completely agree. This is not finished, it isn't even polished, and it is very clearly not the final VR vision for Star Citizen, but what is already here works far better than I expected, and it shows just how powerful this game can be in VR as the feature matures. For me personally, the current state is already good enough to switch to VR full-time. If you are somebody that hasn't tried Star Citizen before, and this video piqued your interest, please feel free to use my referral link in the video description below. If you make an account with the referral, both of us will get some nice bonus rewards. One last thing before I go, I would also really love to hear your feedback. I haven't made videos like this before, so it would be really cool to hear what you thought about it. If you're interested in more videos like this, please let me know in the comments. I'm very excited about VR support in Star Citizen, and I'm hoping to share more about it through this channel. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you around.